Just ahead, a crucial senator throws his support behind the PRO Act. President Biden is talking jobs and climate, and the IRS targeting small earners while ignoring the big ones. All that and more as Labor This Week begins now. Hello, I'm Mark Harris, and as the International Climate Summit drew to a close late last week, one thing became patently clear. In Joe Biden's Washington, climate change no longer means devastating ecological damage to our planet. Rather, it means the opportunity to create endless jobs that could be filled through special training that wouldn't mean numbing college debt in order to earn higher than average wages. Indeed, the woman they're calling the Anthony Fauci of the environment, the White House climate advisor, Gina McCarthy, has been getting the word out since January that this administration is urging a wholesale transformation of the U.S. economy toward clean energy, and that when Joe Biden thinks climate, he thinks jobs. In fact, the whole concept of climate change is now being tied to the $2 trillion American Jobs Plan the president unveiled at the end of last month in Pittsburgh. The conversation out of the White House is no longer about the shift to electric vehicles. Rather, it's about how fast that shift can occur. The administration sees electric cars as a U.S.-dominated industry and as a jobs creator, and has proposed $174 billion for the electrification of the nation's transportation system, including a nationwide network of electric vehicle chargers. All part of the infrastructure plan that is currently being pitched by the White House. Most surprising in all of this is the fact that several unions have begun getting on board with the concept. And in a startling announcement last week, the United Mine Workers Union said it would accept President Biden's plan to move away from coal and other fossil fuels in exchange for a true energy transition that would include thousands of jobs in the renewable energy sector. The United Mine Workers pushed forth a proposal that they wanted included in the jobs package that calls for significant tax incentives for renewable energy and a preference for hiring dislocated miners, and for funding to plug old oil and gas wells and clean up abandoned mines, to name but just a few of their demands. Significantly, with the new position by the mine workers and consideration of their proposal, Democratic Senator of West Virginia, Joe Manchin, has said he will now endorse the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act, recently passed by the House of Representatives. And we'll have more on that when Labor This Week continues right after this. It's called the PRO Act, and it stands for Protecting the Right to Organize. Known as H.R. 842, the bill was passed in the House on March 9th, and should the bill pass the Senate as it is currently written, it could mean sweeping changes for unions and workers and their rights to organize. And once again, allow union organizing campaigns and voting procedures to be conducted on a level playing field that has been severely tilted in favor of businesses over the last half century. And significantly, the bill would neutralize current right-to-work legislation in the 28 states where it is currently law. Additionally, the bill would help protect workers from retribution for trying to start a union and punish employers who violate those workers' rights. And significantly, it would end the practice of holding mandatory company meetings where corporations can openly disparage unions during a union drive on the property. And that's something that was used to the company's significant advantage during the recent organizing drive at the Amazon plant in Bessemer, Alabama. The problem with the PRO Act is this. In order for the bill to be sent to President Biden for his signature and then to become law, it must first pass the U.S. Senate. Now, with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia recently signaling his support for the bill, we are still faced with two Democrat senators, Kristen Sinema and Mark Kelly, both of Arizona, not yet supporting the bill. With the larger problem being that the bill will have to overcome a filibuster in that chamber. Now, should current filibuster rules remain in place, and with no Republicans supporting the bill. So unless those rules are changed before the bill reaches the floor, it will never see the light of day. We'll be right back. A recent report from the Treasury Inspector General found that the IRS is not actively working on cases of high-income taxpayers who do not file their taxes and who collectively owe more than $45 billion to the U.S. government. This group accounts for between 30 and 75% of all monies owed for back taxes. Alternatively, the study showed that the IRS disproportionately audits low-income earners who claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, or the EITC. The EITC credit is for households with startlingly low annual incomes in the mid-teens and going up somewhat higher based on several factors, but never really reaching much above the $20,000 a year mark. Now, these are not households that can readily afford to hire top-notch tax attorneys to get the IRS off their backs indefinitely. Senator Elizabeth Warren is working on a proposal for a steady and consistent funding stream to the IRS to ensure they have the resources in place to go after those wealthy individuals and corporations who are shirking their tax-paying responsibilities. Now, the idea here is that if the IRS has the resources to pursue the complicated litigation blocks thrown up by $1,000 an hour tax attorneys on behalf of the wealthy, they will get off the backs of those who are just trying to survive day to day, many of whom, by the way, are working more than one job. And most significantly, those that are cheap to audit. The tax gap is the amount of money owed but not yet collected by the government. That's what the tax gap is defined as. And it is nearing a $1 trillion a year mark. $1 trillion a year. An amount that could begin flowing into the government's coffers once the IRS begins to pursue the wealthy tax holdouts in this country. Now, those claiming the EITC are split proportionally along racial lines, and yet a disproportionate number of blacks living in the South have mostly been targeted with audits on their income taxes. Some are calling this a racist move. And even if you have done nothing wrong, the threat of an IRS audit and the possible penalty and interest payments that can result add up quickly and only add to the stress of life at the near poverty level that we experience in this country. I'll be right back with my thoughts on the union loss to Amazon at the Bessemer, Alabama warehouse. In the late 1950s, labor in our country was in its heyday. Fully 1/3 of the working class of Americans were union members. Unions were courted for their power, for the way they could reach their membership. Politicians of all stripes curried favor with union heads in the mid-1960s. President Lyndon Johnson counted Walter Reuther, then the head of the all-powerful United Auto Workers Union, as a close advisor. Indeed, union membership meant something for Americans. It meant a good living, solid pay and benefits, vacations, and a new car when the old one wore out, retirement, a chance to help the kids do better. But to many outsiders looking in, it was far too many people working far too closely together. Increasingly, members of the black and brown communities became members of the unions. And when it came time to negotiate a new contract, black and brown and white, women and men stood shoulder to shoulder and said, "This is what we want," and, for the most part, that was what they got. And when the business down the street saw what happened at the union shop, they would quietly give their workers a bigger share of the pie in order to keep the union out. And then someone on the right took note. All of these folks have power in their togetherness. They all work together in spite of their skin color or gender. Bingo. And so began the slow, methodical, legislative, and judicial dismantling of Americans' unions' rights. And with it, the increasing divide in a country between people of color and the white working class. Unions bring people together. Unions don't see race. Unions don't see gender. Unions see workers. And when they work together, there's pretty much nothing within reason that they can't accomplish. You see, the recent vote at the Amazon warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, where the workforce is mostly made up of people of color, failed because the system is now vigorously and viciously rigged against unions. But also because many decades ago, a certain faction of our powerful elite realized that unions coalesced power in the hands of the many. And that was truly a dangerous idea and threatened their hold on power. If you wanted to increase your power and your wealth, you needed a divided republic in which to do that. And unions had to go. Promise the white worker he'll do great things for him. Hell, tell him you'll make America great again. Cloak that in a racist message, and boom, you've got the working class divided, and you can proceed to take away even more of their power. And for those of you who were duped by that message, I hope you learn from your mistakes as you watched Donald Trump and his revolving door of thugs and con artists steal from you after making promises to clean up that swamp. The PRO Act, which stands for Protecting the Right to Organize, has the ability to reverse half a century of erosion of union power. It has the ability to bring together people from all races and genders and once again give them a voice in Washington, D.C. If I were you, I'd take a real interest in how you can take charge as individuals by coming together with one voice, regardless of the differences you're being told to pay attention to. I would stop listening to the vitriol coming out of the right-wing media outlets and look for some facts on which to base your thinking. Stop letting Tucker Carlson think for you. If I were you, I would get to know the PRO Act, and I would email and call my senator right now and tell them to support that bill. I'm Mark Harrison, and I'll see you next week on Labor This Week.